Welcome to the CCVO Capacity Building Webinar Series. I'm Tracy Braun, Manager Programs at CCVO. This series is focused on topics that will help nonprofit professionals and the organizations they work with build their capacity and strengthen their impact. Thank you to our sponsors, Land Solutions and Altitude Communications, for their support of the CCVO Webinar Series.
Welcome to CCVO's new capacity building webinars, created to provide you with learning and resources on demand and on your schedule. These webinars will cover topics of interest to nonprofit professionals, all at no cost to you, thanks to the generous support of our sponsors. With me here today are Mark Allison of Land Solutions and Marshall Anderson of Altitude Communications to share a bit about why they've chosen to partner with CCVO. Mark?
Thanks, David. Land Solutions is really proud to help CCVO present these webinars as flexible learning opportunities for the nonprofit sector. As an IT solutions provider, Land Solutions offers small to medium-sized organizations the flexibility to work how they want, from wherever they want, by leveraging the power of the cloud. So sponsoring these webinars is a natural extension of our work.
Very good, thanks. Marshall?
Yeah, we feel the same at Altitude Communications. We're a cloud provider of telephone and communication services, and we saw the direct link between the expert content of these webinars and what they're trying to promote, which is productivity and efficiencies to the viewership. And we were able to marry that with our own passion for driving those same productivities and efficiencies to our customers by leveraging our platforms. So we're very happy to sponsor this programming.
Thanks to you both. These webinars would not have happened without your generous support. If you're new to CCVO webinars, please take a minute to look through the complete listing of topics and recordings available on our website.
This webinar is pre-recorded, but that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. We encourage you to add your questions to the chat window because we'll be sharing them with speakers for a follow-up blog post. You'll be able to find the link for the post and the recording of this webinar on our website after the release date. For this webinar on compensation planning, we're pleased to be joined by Janet Salopek, President and Founder of Salopek and Associates. Janet leads a team of consultants who work across Canada in human resources, strategy, and board governance. And CCVO has worked with them on many projects, including HR-focused workshops and ongoing compensation work with the Boland Survey. Janet, I'm so pleased that you're here to talk about compensation philosophy and program design.
Thank you, Tracy, for the introduction. I'd like to spend a minute and just tell you a little bit about who we are. Salopek is a team of HR and business consultants who work across Canada. We help organizations in all aspects of their people management. Compensation is an area of specialization for Salopek, and we have consultants on our team who are available for advice. They can assist you in either developing a full compensation program or providing over-the-shoulder consulting on an hourly basis as required. We are proud that 40% of our clients are from the not-for-profit sector. Compensation is a critical component of your HR strategy. When it comes to designing and implementing a compensation program for your organization, we believe it is important to understand the process and be comfortable explaining it to management and staff. We hope that you will find this webinar helpful in understanding the basics on compensation design and the impact it has on attracting and retaining the right people. At the end of the webinar, we hope that you will take away an understanding of best practices with respect to compensation design, the development of compensation structures, and resources you can access to assist you in managing and administrating your compensation program. During the webinar, we will focus on 4 key topics. Each topic is fundamental to developing a robust compensation program that will help you to attract and retain the right people. A compensation philosophy is sometimes referred to as your compensation strategy. It provides guidance and gives you the parameters to design your compensation program. It's critical to have discussed your compensation philosophy with your board, prior to embarking on the design of a compensation program. As such, developing the compensation philosophy is a first step in program design. A compensation philosophy outlines your organization's approach to compensation. It states what's important with respect to compensation. Is that internal equity versus the external market? It states what components makes up the compensation in your organization. That would be, of course, base pay, group benefits, maybe bonuses. Who do you compare yourselves to with respect to the market? How do you position yourselves in the market? And/or how are jobs valued? And do you link pay to performance? The compensation philosophy is approved by the board, and it is the responsibility of the executive director and management to administer compensation relative to the approved philosophy. In front of you is a sample compensation philosophy that has actually been approved by a board. There are two parts to this statement. The first part, which is on your screen, is an overarching statement of intent. It is a good communication piece for staff and all stakeholders to describe aspects of the policy that are important to the organization. It provides good messaging and aligns with the values of the organization. In front of you is the second part of this sample philosophy, and it provides more specific information. It is clear on positioning in the market, the importance of non-monetary benefits, and it is an excellent tool for managers to use in making decisions about an employee's salary. It links pay to performance. Typically, a compensation philosophy for nonprofits will address sustainability and funding, and reference will be made to non-cash compensation items, for example, benefits and work-life balance. As you reflect on the sample compensation philosophy that we just discussed, think about what direction it provides. What components might be important to your strategy on attracting and retaining your people? Specifically, on competitive markets. Where do you attract people from when you recruit? And are you competitive? How important is internal equity relative to paying a premium for hot skill sets? How often do you commit to reviewing salary grids? And do you have the flexibility to compensate at a higher level for jobs that are critical and key to your organization? Does your compensation philosophy provide you good direction in developing your compensation program? Let's take a moment to explore market positioning. Specifically, how does your organization's compensation compare to your competitors, those organizations that you compete for talent? If your organization is to lead the market, you will set pay at year-end anticipated market levels, not at the current market levels. Essentially, organizations that lead the market will start the year ahead of its competition and remain there until the end of the year when markets catch up. Typically, an organization that leads the market will look for experienced talent and attract that talent by paying higher than market wages. If your approach is to lag the market, your organization will set its pay equal to current market levels at the beginning of the year. The organization's pay levels will fall behind the market as the year progresses. Typically, an organization that lags the market will choose to hire less experienced people and pay less than market wages. This organization may offer additional training, development opportunities as a means to attract and develop employees. If your organization has an approach that lead lags, it will set its pay at mid-year anticipated market levels, and as such, will lead the market in the first half of the year and lag the market in the second half. Typically, organizations that use a lead-lag philosophy will attempt to hire more qualified people than lag organizations, but offer more training and development opportunities than lead organizations. Consider your approach. Do you lead, lag, or lead lag the market? And is this approach working for you? Let's take a moment to consider the compensation philosophy for an organization that has secured longer-term funding and has an aggressive mandate to grow the organization. Their market positioning strategy will most likely be to lead the market for key positions. One could expect that the philosophy for this organization will be more general, less specific, in order to allow flexibility in making compensation decisions to attract and retain the right talent. For example, if they need a unique talent, they will have the flexibility to go higher on the compensation package than for other positions that may be easier to recruit for. This organization may decide that for certain positions, they will look at local market data, but for harder to recruit positions, they will look at market data that is provincial or national. The positioning within a compensation structure will vary depending on the job. Key positions that are hard to recruit and retain may be positioned at the higher end of the structure, while other less critical positions may be positioned at the lower end or the middle of the structure. The compensation program will include incentives or at least provide the flexibility to include incentives. This compensation philosophy that you see on the screen in front of you is written intentionally more general to allow flexibility in program design and administration. This philosophy allows the organization to go higher than the median for some aspects of compensation and/or for key positions, as long as total rewards across the organization are at the median. Compensation programs are one of the tools employers use to attract, motivate, and retain employees to achieve the organization's objectives. It can be a challenge to meet all of the objectives of an effective compensation program. It is important for management and the board to agree on what are the most important objectives prior to starting the process of compensation program design. Total compensation includes not only base salary, but incentives, short and long term, ancillary, and group benefits. Consider all HR policies that affect compensation. That would be sick leave, training and development when developing a total compensation program. And make sure you communicate this total package to your employees. Think about developing a total rewards statement in your communication. Cash compensation consists of three components: base pay, short-term incentives, and long-term incentives. Program design should take into account total rewards, which includes cash compensation, plus group and ancillary benefits, for example, time off, flexibility in work hours, and recognition programs. Bonuses are an option for organizations that want to recognize performance and are limited in the amount of base salary increases they can provide. If funding doesn't permit a salary increase, it may permit a one-time bonus payment that won't impact increases in future years and will have no impact on the cost of benefits that are based on salary, for example, life insurance. Long-term incentives are not very common in nonprofits, but very common in the corporate and private sector. When nonprofits are short on funding, the ancillary benefits and recognition programs play a very important role in compensation design. For the purpose of program design, we're going to focus on base pay salary structure. A salary range base pay structure with a minimum, midpoint, and maximum is a best practice. Some organizations have steps in the scale, for example, 8 to 12 steps based on seniority. Many of these systems are being revamped with a focus on market competitiveness rather than seniority and a structure that has a min, mid, and max. The range spread determines how wide the salary range will be. Many organizations are moving towards broader banding, that's a wider spread, as it provides greater flexibility. The range overlap is how much spread there is between scales, and this is important for career progression and ensuring that you don't have compression issues, which is when a supervisor makes the same salary as an employee that reports to them. Typically, a supervisor would receive at least 12% more than a direct report. Otherwise, there is compression. This example shows a structure with a moderate range overlap, which allows for movement throughout a pay structure due to performance, promotion, demotion, reclassification, market adjustments as examples. You will notice that the range gets larger for director executive level positions. Typically, service, production, admin, and technical roles have range spreads between 20 to 30%. Professional and supervisory roles have range spreads between 30 to 40%. Managerial and executive roles have range spreads of approximately 50% or sometimes more. Broad banding refers to a larger spread between minimum and maximum in your salary scale, which is a best practice, allowing organizations to be more flexible and responsive to market needs. The sample we just looked at in the previous slide demonstrates broad banding. A broader band supports organizations who may be undergoing change, trying to encourage a different culture, or trying to channel the focus of compensation away from grade level to progression within a scale. For example, moving employees through a scale or range to reward them for taking on more responsibilities, training and improving competencies. Incorporating and moving to broader bands will require organizations to spend time explaining the new structure and managing the change that employees will experience. Change management is critical when you decide to move away from old ways of compensating your people. Salary increases are less structured with broad banding. It requires a higher level of expertise in managers, allocating increases for competency, skill development, and performance. Make sure you are training your managers how to administer under new compensation programs. Organizations need to decide whether they want to place a greater focus on being externally competitive and paying in line with the market, which is the market pricing approach, or focus on internally equitable approaches and pay in line with other employees in the organization. Most organizations are trending towards a market pricing approach. This approach makes good use of salary surveys such as the Bolin survey and other surveys that are reputable and reliable. Deciding on whether you need to redesign your compensation should include consideration of the following. Are you experiencing turnover? Are you having trouble attracting the right talent? Are employees asking questions about how their salary is determined? Do you have a process for determining salary, and can it be easily explained to your employees? Before you embark on compensation redesign, please consider the state of your job descriptions for benchmarking and whether you have access for good, unbiased compensation data for salary structure design. You will need both of these if you undertake a redesign. Benchmarking is comparing a job in your organization with an external job to determine a competitive salary. Benchmarking is not about matching job titles. A good understanding of the scope of responsibility and the competencies required for the job is critical. Benchmarking is the foundation of a good salary structure and a reliable and relevant compensation program. Accurate benchmarking requires an up-to-date job description. Survey data is important in developing a salary structure. Everyone has an opinion on where to get data. We recommend that you consult the experts, as there are organizations that specialize in surveys to ensure the data you are using is unbiased. You need to also access data that will provide the right matches in the right geographical location. Your compensation philosophy will guide you in this regard. What is some terminology that you need to understand as you interpret a salary survey and build your salary structure? Do I focus on mean versus median salaries? Median is always preferred. It's a best practice. Mean is more sensitive to outliers or abnormally high or low values, whereas the median is less affected by outliers and therefore more accurate overall. Range percentiles can be important as you develop your salary structure. The range for a job can be created by taking the P25 to represent the range minimum and taking the P75 to represent the range maximum. The slide in front of you is actually a sample from the Bolin survey dated 2015. It is critical that you are accessing the right statistics. Ensure that the sample you compare yourselves to is aligned with your compensation philosophy. For example, does your compensation philosophy indicate that you should compare yourselves to similar sized organizations? Or is there justification and agreement that although you are an organization that has, for example, an operating budget of less than 1 million, you will still compare yourself against organizations that are 1 million to 5 million bigger because you are growing, expanding, and need to attract talent from these organizations. Knowing the sample from which you will draw from is important. When developing your compensation program, it is important to have data from unbiased resources. The Bolin survey is an excellent source of data for most nonprofits. Some data found on the internet or published by membership organizations are biased, as it is reported by individuals or stakeholders who may have a vested interest in the results. When developing a salary structure, not all jobs need to be benchmarked. Some jobs can't be benchmarked because you can't find a match. These are unique positions. So a question, how many jobs need to be benchmarked in order to develop a reliable salary structure? There is no hard and fast rule, but we typically strive to match at least 50% of the positions and job slot the rest. This means we would place it in the salary structure in an approximate ranked order. Be transparent with your employees on how your compensation program was developed and how you administer it. Otherwise, employees will form their own impressions. Remember, perception is reality. Many organizations with limited funds make the decision to utilize any available money to reward performance, rather than giving cost of living increases. This decision is made because they want to retain those people who are a good fit and who work hard to deliver to the organization's mission and vision. In order to link performance to compensation, you will need a robust performance management process. If this process is not in place, don't link performance to compensation, but commit to eventually moving in this direction. The table on the slide explains where you might position people relative to how competent the person is in the position and the consistency of their performance. A person new to the job and/or experiencing performance issues would be placed below midpoint, a solid performer near midpoint, and a star performer above midpoint. With respect to overall takeaways, we are hopeful that during the webinar, you received helpful information and an understanding of the important considerations as you contemplate a compensation program review, and the importance of having a well-structured program that is fair, equitable, and allows you to attract and retain the right talent. Thank you for attending the webinar. You will find the PowerPoint attached. Please print it off and use it as a reference. And if you have any questions, please give me a call and get in touch. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Janet, for sharing your expertise with us. I look forward to reading your thoughts on the follow-up blog post. Thank you as well to our sponsors, Land Solutions and Altitude Communications, to the CCVO team who worked behind the scenes to produce this webinar, and to you, the audience, for spending this time with us. All the best until next time.